Hello and welcome to the Anyone Can Play Guitar podcast,
which gives you, the listener, a series of hints and pointers on your journey as a musical artist,
providing you with interviews from those in the music industry, along with our own experiences.
Ben and James shine some light on the many pitfalls and opportunities that being a musician has to offer.
This week we're backstage at the Sage in Gateshead, speaking to one of the most recognisable voices from UK radio, Mark Radcliffe. Here we cover the value of radio, demos, Glastonbury and what draws him to folk music. Hello and welcome to episode 2 with me, James, and him,
Ben.
Episode 2.
Yeah.
We are flying high.
We certainly are. And what a guest.
Yeah, another following Paul Smith of Maximo, Mark Radcliffe, another big name, certainly in the UK.
Definitely.
He's been around on big radio shows.
As long as I've been listening to radio.
Yeah, absolutely.
And what we've done this time as well, so last week we spoke to Paul, who was in a band, years in a band, and primarily we know him from Maximo Park. This week we're going to go slightly different and talk to someone from the world of radio primarily, but Mark has been in bands for years. He is in a few bands and performs by himself in folk style shows. We do cover that slightly, but we really focus on the radio elements and how bands, artists can get heard and maybe get played on Mark's show or someone else's show.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we'll go into a bit about how relevant radio is today compared to all the other mediums that are out there, and why radio still has a place, and it's some real genuinely great insights. Like I say, he's been there, seen it, done it at sort of the top level, I guess, if you like, of radio. If
you are in a indie band or a singer-songwriter who is looking for a really good market, Six Music is one of the best radio stations out there, in my opinion. I mean, all radio stations have got their place for certain things, but if you are looking for longevity, so to speak, or getting a really good fan base, Six Music is one of the best you can look at.
Yeah, I mean, Mark's someone who's covered anything and everything as well.
Yeah.
All types of bands, all sizes of bands. He's seen it, done it.
And got many t-shirts.
And got, no doubt, many t-shirts.
Yeah. And above all, like Paul, I would say top bloke. Really kind with his time to us. And
I even managed to turn up, and we did this one as a duo.
Which was great.
Which was good, yeah.
Did I get any album titles wrong this time? Don't think I did. I did mention...
You definitely got something wrong, let's be honest. If we're chalking things up...
It wasn't wrong.
2 episodes in... Was it right?
Oh no, you're right. The band name, that's right. I was on more along the lines of when I mentioned the radio show that replaced his.
Oh yeah, that was a beautiful moment. Yeah,
So
your favourite point in Radio 1 history was the people that came after he finished.
Yeah,
good one.
But to clarify, that wasn't my favourite point in Radio 1 history. It was just to signify that we did listen to radio at work, which was one of the points we were making at the time. I just made it very badly.
Yeah.
But, like I say, he's a nice bloke, and we just laughed about it, because it wasn't meant any way other than that.
2-0, I think, that's all I'm
James,
saying, really.
I don't think you're going to catch us overall. Let's be honest.
Concede and defeat.
No, I'm just going to do it very well.
Alright, fair enough.
So...
Yeah, well, I think without going on any further, let's get straight into the interview with Mark Radcliffe.
Listen to the man himself.
Right, well, Mark, welcome to the podcast.
Hello.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
We're just here at the Sage. You've just been sound checking. How's that been going?
It's all right. It's funny because a lot of the time I play in a 7-piece band, and when I do these, I'm on my own. Right. And when you load into a big imposing venue like the Sage with one guitar and a little amp, you feel a bit inadequate, really. Hopefully the audience don't feel it was inadequate when they're going home later. but we'll see.
I'm sure they won't. So there's a few different things that we'll want to cover. So we're just going to dive straight into it. So a lot of people will know you from the radio. So one of the things that we're interested from your perspective, for our listeners who are just starting out as musical artists at the moment, how relevant do you feel radio is today compared to all the other mediums that are out there?
Well, I still think it's relevant. There may be a degree of self-interest in me saying that. I think that the interesting thing all the time is you've been able to get, any piece of music ever recorded anywhere in the world at any time, instantly. And that's an amazing thing. When I think back to when I started being interested in music, I was growing up in Bolton in Lancashire. And most of the time, the main access I had to music then was the music press. Sounds, Melody Maker and the NME. So it sounds bizarre now, but we didn't know any different. So you would read about bands before you heard them.
Yeah.
And in fact, I've talked about this with Neil Tennant of the Pet Shop Boys, who's just been through here, because he was an editor of Smash Hits, and he was saying he thought it was rather wonderful, really, because it sort of made you imagine what it was like. It was a kind of magical sense of anticipation. So then if you wanted to hear that record... like, say, I remember reading about the Ramones, who did 17 songs in 30 minutes. I'm thinking, wow, that sounds amazing. What's that about? And then I would carry on. I would listen to John Peel, and you might hear that, if you kept listening for a couple of weeks. And then if you wanted the record, you had to go to Bolton to, like, W.H. Smith's or Boots did records, or electrical white goods stores, and order it, pay for it with your paper round money, quite expensive, wait for it to arrive... maybe 2 weeks, go home with it on the bus and play it. But it was such, by that time, it's such a ritualistic thing.
Oh, I totally agree. I remember when I got...
The chances of not liking it are diminished, really.
Yeah, because I remember when I got my first CD player.
Yeah.
My first CD was What's the Story?
Yeah.
And I knew it was in my mum's cupboard, wrapped for Christmas.
Yeah.
I had to wait another 3.5 weeks to listen to it, but I obviously wouldn't have always... played religiously on at that point.
Yeah.
But yeah, that anticipation.
That anticipation was an amazing thing, and so it made, like, when I think my children now, I've got 3 daughters, and I don't think any of them feels the need to own physically a record. It's not a thing. So, but in a way, I think it's marvellous, because it's obviously stupid if you're interested in music that you can't hear any. But to answer your question, I think that, like, if you're coming new to things and you think, right, well, I can listen to anything that's ever been recorded in the whole world, that's actually quite a bewildering thing. So it's actually quite nice if there's a radio show that you trust or plays your kind of music that you'll tune into. Hopefully I was on 6 Music and also do the folk show on Radio 2. So very much true of that. Where, so you'd hear some things, say, oh yeah, I remember that, that's quite good, and then you would play the same thing over again, and then we'd say, but here's something new that we think is worth hearing, you might like this. So that just singles that out, saves you sifting through 1,000 records if you've not got time. So I think in terms of music radio, that role, like, it's an overused word, but sort of curating, really. Someone who you trust and like to be a guide through some new stuff. I think that there will always be a need for that.
Yeah, that makes total sense. You could spend days and days and days trawling through the internet, listening to everything, and it could be all awful, as opposed to, like you say, that having that trusted voice to point you straight at the things.
And if you're younger and you listen to something on our 6 Music show, and maybe we'll play something about, I don't know, Spirit or something like that, which you might never have heard if you're a kid. So, that sounds good. So you then got the name Spirit. So then you can go to iTunes and say what Spirit records are there, rather than having to order them from America and wait 2 weeks for them to come into a washing machine shop. And so, so I think they work hand in hand. Whether long-term, shows that don't do that, shows that are more just sort of straight entertainment, daytime shows on Radio 1 and Radio 2, I don't really know how people listen to those anymore. It used to be sort of things in the workplace and that, and in factories and stuff. I don't know how many people are in that situation anymore. I really don't, and I think Radio 1 has experienced great problems because, a lot of the kids are just listening to, Spotify or YouTube on the phone, and it's like, I think there's a generational divide, really, on loyalty to something called a radio station, and I'm not sure that kids these days really feel that loyalty and empathy and connection with a radio station in the way that I did. Yeah. And how old are you guys?
Mid-30s.
Mid-30s, okay. So you're considerably younger than me. Did you You sort of latch onto one radio station?
I think I've had 3. I went Radio 1 to Radio 2 to Radio 6.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
I like Colin Needith back about 10 years ago.
Yeah.
I think they had a bit more choice themselves about 10 years ago as well.
Well, they took over from me and Mark Riley in the afternoons, I think.
So sorry.
So you waited for us to go and then you decided to tune in. I see. So anyway, best be going. So yeah, I think that, I don't know whether that really exists anymore, but perhaps the people are latched onto a different thing, like a certain YouTube channel. I don't know. But,
I think you're right in that there will still be an element of that curation, and there will always be people, whoever they are, I guess, whatever the medium. So I'm interested in, how would bands generally get on your radar, or any DJs who?
It's difficult to make one general answer to that, really, because I don't know how other DJs work. With me, it's really, really easy, because I've always listened to everything I get sent. So, if someone sends something to me at 6 Music, at Dockhouse, Media City in Salford, with my name on it, it ends up on my desk, and I will listen to it. It might take me a while. Yeah. If I've been away for 2 weeks, it's sometimes too much and I never quite catch up, and I have to put some aside and start again. So if you send it and I've been on holiday, send it another time. I still tend to listen to CDs and not links, by and large. Because but in fact, I can tell you my postal address, which I've just done. I'm not going to tell you my private email, so every band can send me an email. If I like it, I play it, irrespective of whether it's signed or anything, And so, in that sense, it's quite easy. I mean, I would say to bands but that's the key, is make sure it gets where you're sending it, and make sure it's got a name on it. Find out names of people's producers or whatever. Find out from the BBC who's producing the Steve Lamacq show. Because you want to send them something. Get a name and address. Don't send it to 6 Music London and hope for the best, or 6 Music Salford. Get something and hope for the best. I mean, there are radio pluggers, of course. Who will make sure it gets to the right people. But you need to be a band with some money behind you, because that tends to be quite expensive. I think whether the route it used to be of kind of doing endless gigs, I mean, it builds a reputation and everything, and people get to know you, the name gets around, and bands want to play, so you shouldn't be put off playing. You should play because you want to play, and you'll get better at doing what you do because you play. And it's fun, and you can go places in a van and get drunk, and it's a laugh, isn't it? That's why we all did it. That's why we all do it. How you would crack Radio 1 and things these days, I imagine that's more difficult. But I think stations like 6 Music but all the shows on there are very open to listening to things that get sent to them direct. So it's a very simple route, really. The post.
Yes, but I think that's a great point in that, is know the person that you send it to. What's their preferences, what format do they want to do, rather than, like you say, just a nameless here's a link when that person
use a bit of knowledge, find out where that show's from, because it could come from Salford, or it could come from Glasgow, or it could come from London, but so if you send something to me in London, it might get to me, but it'll take a while, because someone's got to find it, redirect it, send it up the internal post, by which time the life of that record might have gone, because you can imagine how many records are floating around. I would say I'd probably get between a dozen and 20 things a day.
Wow.
It's a lot to listen to.
It's a lot to listen to, and so I'm also just out of necessity pretty ruthless, really. And sometimes you miss something, but sometimes if it doesn't grab you within the first 30 seconds or a minute, really I'm off to the next one. I mean, that's with singles. I tend to put the albums on one side, and then sometimes it takes me longer to get to that. And if I like something, on the first couple of tracks, but I'm not sure of the song, then eventually I'll put it in my car and listen on the way home and see if there's anything down the track listing, So I would always say, if you're sending something in, really don't get hung up on the kind of artistic arc of what you're doing, like structuring an album. Not when you're a major band and you're releasing an album, but if you send me your first thing and you've got 4 tracks and you say, no, I think the best one's third, but we're building up, don't do that. Put what you think is best first. Hit it with your best shot. I always say that to bands live. Play your best song first.
Really?
Play your best song first, because like you've got them then. You know, it's no use saving it to the end. If they like you by the end, they'll probably accept any old crap. You know? It's like, you know, so start strongly. Start strongly.
Yeah.
If what I thought were my 3 best songs, I would perhaps put them first, second, and last in a set.
Yeah.
I reckon. Depends how long you play. Maybe one in the middle, but I would. You want to kick off with 2 crackers. I think always.
So you accept CDs? This is a question I've got
Yeah.
in the book here, James. Do you want 150 rig CDs that we've produced back when you were in a band?
You don't.
No, you don't.
I've got plenty of my own CDs in the garage. I've nowhere to put those. So yeah.
Actually, that's you touched on a point there that we've got written down there. So 30 seconds to a minute is what you listen out for. What are the key things you listen out for on a positive, and the key no-nos that you listen out for as well?
I think that it's that's very difficult to say, because it depends what kind of music you're doing, doesn't it? Really.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're doing a guitar-based indie rock song, indie pop song, you know, the sound has got to be good, the singer has got to be strong, you know, the sound has got to be. There's got to be some atmosphere in the sound, I think. There's got to be a sense of something happening, lifting off the track. You know, it's no use. I wouldn't send me what you think is a demo. I would send me what you think is the finished thing. You know, I get people sending me things. So, what do you think of this? It's work in progress. I said, well, I'm do the work in progress and send it me when you finished it, as you think. I might make some suggestions. I mean, you know, but if it's kind of more of an ambient thing, you know, more of a kind of bubbly thing, and it's, you know, again, it's just kind of the sounds and atmosphere that's leading you in anywhere. It's different. It doesn't have to come in with a massive fanfare. I'm also not particularly. I tell you what, I don't like things that come with too many gimmicks. Sometimes you get something that comes in a pizza box with some stickers and a coat hanger and an ironing board or something. You know, and I'm like, what's all this crap? You know, I don't need that. I'm just going to listen to it. I'm not even bothered. You know, sometimes I've played things that have come literally on a CDI with it written on in with a Sharpie. You know, and I'll still listen to it because I'll think it looks crap, but you never know. And it usually is crap, but 1 or 2, you never know.
And that's
the other thing I hate, personal hate, is that I am really anti any records that come with a cover on with someone with a guitar outdoors.
Right.
People, I don't want any more records of people looking forlorn walking down a railway track with the guitar case, or even worse, a guitar not in a case over their shoulder. Ooh. I hate that.
No,
for a time we got so much stuff that me and Stuart McCody did the show. We had an agreement that if it had a guitar outside on the front, we wouldn't listen to it.
Brilliant.
Very unfair, but you know, we just got a bit overwhelmed, and you had to set some rules, really. But I think the other thing is that for bands, whether electronic bands or guitar bands, I think what you have to listen for to your own material is you're waiting for the singer to sing. A lot of music comes down, whatever style of music it is, not ambient things and a lot of kind of techno and stuff, you know, but a lot of pop music comes down to a singer singing a song. So if I listen to the intro, I think this is quite interesting. It happens quite a lot that the singer starts and you're like, So make sure when the vocals come in, it lifts it up. It's, you know, something's happening. There's a sense, right, this is the introduction and here's the main event. You know, so make sure the vocals are mixed right. It doesn't have to be the loudest, but just make sure when the vocals come in that there's some impact.
Yeah.
That'll be where we failed.
Yes.
So for people listening, just to give them a feel of what the competition's like, I suppose. So you receive, you know, the amount that you receive, it's a lot. What sort of percentage are ones that you think, actually, that's decent? Or how many are just straight in the...
Like, might they even get played?
Well, it's difficult because some of them are bands that I already know.
Right.
So I'll get sort of records like you know, a band on Six Music, you know, so we'll have played a couple of singles and then that'll be the next single. So I know, well, that might go on the playlist. Yeah. So I'm not particularly paying attention to that. Or bands that we play and they've done a couple of singles and then the albums come through that. So, you know, it's not all unknown stuff that you're getting. But, you know, I would say, you know, some days... I would hope that I would get something I would fancy playing maybe once every couple of days, 2 or 3 days maybe. Yeah, right. So maybe in a week, if I listen every day, I might find 3 things that I mean, It's very different for someone like Mark Riley I used to work with, you see, because our show. Doing the sub playlist, the Six Music playlist, and we play a lot of old tracks as well.
Yeah.
And we do the chain, and we do the Tea Time Theme Time, and so we have a lot of hit points in that show anyway. So when you actually break it down, it's 3 hours, and you've perhaps got 5 records in each half hour. So you've got 30 records. 24 of them might be assigned before we start, you know. So we've only got limited slots, and then me and Stuart tend to, you know, we have to carve those out between us. Whereas someone like Mark Riley is putting together 2 hours of music a day. So the number of new things he'll fit in that he likes will be much greater than mine. It's a different sort of show. And but I think that, you know, I think 2 or 3 out of a, you know, I'm saying probably after about 50, 60, it sounds brutal. But when you take out the name bands that we already know and everything, it's probably 2 or 3 out of maybe, you know, 30 or something. So it might be 10%.
No, that's not bad.
It might be 10%. It's not a needle in a haystack, you know. Yeah. And then sometimes if I'm not sure, I'll go, well, you know, it's only one. Sometimes I'll just see out. It's a funny thing with records, and that sometimes you can play it on the radio. And you loved it when you listen on the headphones or listen in the car. And it's, did I pick it? Because I'll pick it and I'll give it to my producer, Lizzie, and she'll schedule them in. So sometimes it might be a week from me picking it for it going in. Right. And I'll say, I don't like this much. And she said, well, you picked it. Did I? And then sometimes you'll hear something, I'm not sure about that. And you put it on the radio and it sounds brilliant. It seems to come alive. Yeah. And you can never quite tell. So sometimes we will just give things a run out and see how it sounds and see what the reaction is, you know. So
how much does listener feedback play in terms of, you know, repeat players or whatever?
I think if people respond really positive, I mean, it's, you know, you can never quite tell, and I don't mind this either, really. You know, if you're a band and you get played, then, you know, you tell everybody you knew to email in and say, God, this is brilliant. Rig are fantastic. Oh, you know, I mean, that's you would do that, but you know, sometimes if there's suspiciously too many, you think, oh, hello, you've mobilised all the mates. And, oh, but fine, you know, why wouldn't you? But sometimes it does seem to be a very genuine thing, you know. And so if that happened, and so people are loving this, then we'd think, right, well, maybe we'll play that again then, yeah. And then we'll take it to the playlist, you know, and see if it, you know, if they want to put it on there, you know. It's quite a stiff competition for places there. But
how much does things get shared around, like, sort of your peers and people that you work with? And does that happen? Is that a thing? Like, if
I mean, not so much, maybe. I mean, I think everybody's quite, in a way, custodial of their own shows. I mean, we do share, and we do have this thing at Six Music Recommends, you know, where people pick records. So we'll play something that Steve's picked, or Mark's picked, or Marianne, or Lauren, or something like that. So we do have a bit of that. And if there is something that, you know, if I've got something that I think will fit someone's show, I'll say, have you heard this? This is, I think you might really like this. But then it would be entirely their decision.
Yeah, of course.
You know, so if obviously with the playlist, I mean that's a shared thing across all the daytime shows from 5 a.m. till 7 at night anyway. So we would play, you know, quite a lot of the same stuff. Yeah.
Okay.
What I've got next down actually leads from radio into some of your other work, specifically Glastonbury coverage, and how much. Similar type of question of how much, like, say you having the playlist or the 6 tracks that you get to play. Going to see a band at Glastonbury that you want to go and see. I remember when you were going to see Fat White Band.
Fat White Family.
That's what I meant. Sorry. Yeah. How much say do you get and what's covered on the Glastonbury coverage? Very
little. I mean, you know, it's like I basically sit there and I'm filtering what's coming towards me, really you know, because, I mean, that is such a massive, massive operation. But if I have come across someone that they're not filming, I'll say, you know, there's a band, I think they were called Fuse from Northern Ireland, 2 girls. You know, I said they were like a female Royal Blood, and I loved them, you know. And so I think they managed to get a bit of that, which wouldn't have gone on before. You know, they were on the John Peel stage. So they said, we've got that, we'll find a bit. You know, you can't suddenly, if I see someone on a stage that's not being filmed, they can't suddenly get a film crew there. But if you're really keen on something and say, I really would love to put some of this in if you can find it, and seeing as they stream all the main stages, you know, usually they will try and accommodate something that you like, because, you know, we're on there for long hours and there are no scripts, so you need some things to talk about. So it's always better to be able to say, oh, I saw these earlier and I thought they were amazing. You know, you've got a bit of personal investment in it then. But, you know, I mean, certainly most of it, and some, you know, a lot of the headliners pick themselves and things, you know. And so I personally think the playing the full headline sets, I think, personally, is too long. What do you think?
Depends on it, because when I had Radiohead on this year, I was in my element.
See, I think the funny thing with Radiohead was Radiohead were better on the telly than there, because
really?
they not the playing and the sound, but the way those big gigs work, as you know, is like no matter how artistic it is, you listen to the music and you watch the lead singer's face on a massive screen. That is how it works. It's that simple.
Yeah.
And Radiohead had all these tricksy little cameras that were mixing with like locked off cameras on a cymbal and on a keyboard, and it looked lovely. Mm-hmm. But actually, in this arena that size, it doesn't quite pull you in as seeing close-ups of the faces.
Yeah.
Ed Sheeran, you know, he had a big artistic thing behind him, but either side was his face. And that is the way it works. I thought Radiohead were amazing, but I thought they should have had the mix of the images in the back and the big faces on the screens at the sides. You know, I mean, I thought 2.5 hours of Foo Fighters, I thought were brilliant, you know, but it's certainly an hour and a half too much for me, but you know, each to their own. I just think
it's an element of variety, though. I guess I think would make sense.
Because I love the Glastonbury coverage, but it costs us a fortune. Because I always pick up these bands like Alabama Shakes and stuff like that.
Right,
because I end up going drop them down, buy their albums. Yeah. So I do like. I would say the sunshine sets, so the earlier ones in the day.
Yeah.
And that's the sort of bits I really like watching on Glastonbury.
Well, Chic were amazing this year. Chic was just about the best band I've ever seen. I mean, Christ almighty. I mean, that was just top. That was world class, that. Mm-hmm. It's like watching Barcelona play football a couple of years ago, watching that. It was amazing.
Yeah.
So what influences you in, like, because obviously Glastonbury, the big, you know, massive amount of bands that play.
Yeah.
What influences you in terms of going to see bands A, B and C
over
others?
It's quite prosaic and boring, really, because, you know, the times I'm working are the times I'm sort of, you know, stuck in the studio. So I actually tend not to make a plan, because I always finish up missing the things, and it depends what the weather's like. You know, if you're at the TV bit up, which is above the Park stage, and you want to see someone on the John Peel stage and it's muddy, it can take me the best part of an hour to get there, and by the time I get there I watch 2 songs and come all the way back. So I tend to just wander, really. I mean, there are people I want to see, but I've sort of given up worrying about it because I just miss people. And so I tend to... And when people always ask me, who are you looking forward to at festivals? And I always say the same thing, which is, I'm looking forward to a surprise. I'm looking forward to someone I don't know I like yet. You know, I'm looking forward to just walking around and hearing a noise, like these 2 girls fuse. What do they call fuse? A ruse? They might be called Ruse now. And,
we'll check it up and put it on the end of the pod.
It's R-E-W-S or F-E-W. I think now I say it again, it might be Ruse, R-E-W-S. And, you know, I was walking across from the Park stage to where we were doing the telly, to the Park stage to watch Flaming Lips, who with all the confetti cannons and big Zorbs and everything going out. And I was walking across, and I heard this racket from this little stage up on the hill. I don't even know what it was called. I thought, that sounds interesting. I went in, and there were these girls there playing to perhaps 50 or 60 people. I thought they were amazing. I'd never heard of them, so I certainly wouldn't have planned to see them.
Yeah.
And I thought they were great. So, you know, I like a surprise. And I've learned to not get disappointed about the people that I miss. You know, I see them all on the telly anyway from up there. So.
How much live music do you go and see in general life outside of Glastonbury?
I don't. You know, I mean, I go to a lot of festivals and I play a lot of gigs, and you know, I go to something if I'm really keen on it. But to be honest, I am 60 next year, and I've seen a lot of music, and I feel tired a lot in the evenings, having done a 3-hour radio show, and I live out of town, and it will take me... I go to the pubs in the little town where I live and see who's playing there, but it takes quite a lot for me to go back into town to a sweaty basement club and see 4 lads in T-shirts playing the guitars, because I have seen 5,000 bands doing that since the mid-70s, so I'll be brutally honest with you. I like a comfortable seat now, and I like it to be finished by about 9:30, 10 o'clock. I've got tickets for Fleet Foxes in November, so I do. But I could try and pretend to you that I'm an habitué of all the sweaty cellars of Manchester, but I'm not anymore. If I am really interested in something and I like the records, then I will go and see what it's like. I might not stay for all of it because I get in for now. So but that's the brutal honesty of it.
But there's a challenge to all bands, though. Listening, if you are a standard guitar, bass, drum sort of setup, a lot of it has been done before. And so some of the people going seeing them haven't seen all the stuff that I've seen. Yeah. So that it's all very well me going seeing a new band and saying, "Oh, that sounds a bit like television." But if you're 14, you've never heard of television, probably. Unless I say it on Six Music and they say, "Oh, it's television then," and then we do the thing you talked about before. You track it back. I like this, and so and I don't think it's really all that important, because it doesn't affect how I listen to your record. If I listen to it, I don't say, "Oh, well, I'll go and see it live first to see if I, if I like that record enough to play it, then I just play it." Yeah. So I don't go to all that many gigs in town anymore. No.
That's actually leads us quite next to the next section, which is folk music. So what attracts you to folk music? Well, it always had a question that could lead on to a very long answer.
The thing is that folk music is one of the things that I love. It's not the only kind of music I love, And so I think when I took over that show, there was some sort of raised eyebrows that that because I'd come through the Radio 1 route and been in kind of rock bands and indie bands, and although I've been in folk rock bands for quite a long time now, very influenced by people like the Waterboys and stuff like that. But when I was growing up in Bolton, folk music, it was in the charts. I was kind of a music nut, and I wasn't really hooked on kind of, that's that kind of music, that's that kind of music, that. If I liked it, and I'm still like this really, if I like it, then I just like it. And that's why I've always refused to acknowledge this kind of concept of guilty pleasures. People say, my guilty pleasure is Barry Manilow. I said, well, why should you feel guilty if you like it? Music is supposed to give you pleasure. If you like it, then that's fine, isn't it? And so when I was growing up, in the charts, there were people like Lindisfarne and Steel Eye Span and Cat Stevens and Ralph McTell. And, you would hear Bob Dylan and things like that. And I just thought it was all fantastic stuff. And then in Bolton, where I was growing up, there weren't all that many gigs on. We used to go to Bolton Tech, which had a lot of kind of Hawkwind style bands on. So sometimes it would be Hawkwind or bands like Gong and Onge and Amon Duel and things like that. There would be bands who would play kind of 3 songs in an hour and a half. And there'd be about 17 of them in the group. And so there was those gigs, and then there were gigs with local bands, like guys who I played with at school and everything. And then there were these things called folk clubs. And folk clubs were in pubs, and you could get in because it was a separate room in the pub. So you could get in from Mittens, you could get out half a mile or whatever.
Right.
And what I loved about it when I went, it was very friendly, very welcoming. And what I really loved, apart from the music, was the storytelling. I loved all the chat of the people explaining the songs and the connection between the musicians and the audience. I loved that. Mm-hmm. And I still think that, most rock bands are very guilty of not doing any of that. No one's expecting you to be a stand-up comedian, but one of the reasons the Foo Fighters have got where they are is because Dave Grohl's a great frontman. He has a connection with that crowd. Some of it is physical energy putting into it and running into the crowd with the music they play. But Wayne Coyne has a connection with a crowd, I saw Adele at Glastonbury has an extraordinary connection with a crowd. And when I saw all these people, they were very funny as well. So the kind of, on telly, the only comedians you would get would be people like Bob Monkhouse or Bernard Manning and these kinds of guys. Whereas when you would see these folk clubs and started to be aware of that world, you got people like Mike Harding and Bob Williamson, where I was, but people like Max Boyce and Billy Connolly and all these great raconteurs all came out of the folk scene. Mm-hmm. And I loved that. I love that element. I mean, that's more or less what I'm doing tonight. I don't hesitate to say I'm not remotely in their class. I'm not saying, Billy Connolly and Mike Harding, they're some of the greatest raconteurs ever to come out of these islands. But that's what I've always been drawn to, really. And so, my thing I'm doing tonight is kind of long, drawn-out introductions into songs. That's what I like doing. So that's what drew me into that world. which then drew me into the folk festivals with things I was playing. So we had this band for years called the Family Mahone. It was very much based on the Waterboys and the Pogues. So that then took us into that world. I started playing folk festivals and folk gigs, and I loved it, and I loved the contact with the audience and the kind of honesty of it and the earthiness of it. And so, rather like I've been talking then, that sort of led me to track back through a lot of the roots of folk music and find loads of stuff that I absolutely loved. And loads of stuff that I absolutely didn't, it's like, but that's fine, because I won't listen to that again. Yeah. But at least I know it's there and I know what it is, And then when the chance came up to do the folk show, because most of those people, there's been a bit more of a crossover as well, acoustic music, most of those people by the time I took over the folk show, people like Eliza Carthy and Kate Rusby and all these Seth Lakeman, all these people, they had already been on my show anyway. So, even though it wasn't our folk show, but it was a music show, and they were playing music and we liked it, so we put them on. It's no more complicated. Sometimes you don't have to overthink these things, really. So when it came time that they wanted to change someone from Mike Harding, my name came up, and, I knew everybody on the scene by then anyway, and I'd done some coverage of Cambridge Folk Festival. So thankfully they thought they'd give me a crack at it, and I'm absolutely loving it.
Cool.
I'm loving it.
Good stuff. Well, I'm conscious of time. So
what time is it?
Finally, one thing that we're doing with all of our guests, because the music community tend to love good causes and charity, and it's something that we're passionate about. So just in terms of getting the word out and things, not necessarily about music related things, we're just quickly discussing with guests anything that they hold close to their heart or anything they're involved in. We know that Joshua Tree. Yeah,
Joshua Tree. Yeah.
Just want to give a bit about what that is, why it's important.
Sure.
How people can get involved.
The Joshua Tree. I kind of support a lot of causes. I'm not a vegetarian, but I kind of tend to support a lot of animal things and anti-hunting things and ethical treatment of animals and everything. Even though I eat meat, but so I tend to be, like any sane person, I kind of donate to several charities, but you feel like you're not making a massive difference on a national scale. Whereas if it's something locally, you feel that like you can really kind of make a difference in terms of getting things to the press. And the Joshua Tree is a charity in Cheshire which was formed by some friends of mine, and their son had leukemia and mercifully recovered from that. But they found it very difficult as a family to get any advice, and certainly there was nowhere to go for some sort of respite care. So they are building a respite holiday home in the Cheshire countryside, where families with kids with cancer and leukemia can sort of go and have activities and spend some time, and there's staff and counselling and things available, And they also have a drop-in centre in Northwich, where people can go and just sort of have counselling as a family or whatever. And it's run just by two people, there's no major grants in it. And, we've done all kinds of things. We had an amazing evening that I managed to organise, where we had... I asked some friends to come and play at a club in Altrincham. I asked Paul Heaton, and he said, how come? He said, I've just started working with Jackie Abbott again, I'll bring her. And so that was more or less their first gig. Wow. And so they played for nothing, and OMD played for nothing. Paul and Andy, I said, listen, can you do this? And they said, we will do it. We'll do it, the two of us. And I said, I'll cover any expenses, I'll just cover that out of my own pocket. And they said, there won't be any expenses. They were great. And my great friend Noddy Older came and we did an auction, and I got signed artwork by Kate Bush, who I know a little bit. I got a signed copy of the Next Day album by Bowie, who I knew a little bit. He sent that. And I got Johnny Marr's guitar, who I know a little bit. He signed that. And we raised about 40 grand that night, And so that was just a magical night, And in fact, it's one of those things that, you got a personal thrill out of. You almost thought, I shouldn't be feeling this triumphant, I'd just done a great gig myself. I thought, yes, this is brilliant, it's like, so I do bits for the Joshua Tree, I'm hosting a big auction for them in November, I think, and so, look, have a look, the Joshua Tree, so, if you want to send them some loose change, I'm sure they'd be thrilled.
Absolutely, we'll put some links in the show.
Absolutely, do that, that'd be great, thank you. Thanks.
Right.
Thanks very much.
Well, no, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.
All right, nice to see you guys. Great,
Enjoy your show.
So, I knew David Bowie a little bit. I don't think I've ever been more jealous of one human being than at that moment.
That 6-second interval.
Sort of knew Bowie, but as it goes, and then listed all of these other people that he's
Johnny Marr. Smiths, I
was like, fair play.
I mean, that is the sort of pedigree that what Radcliffe has, though, in the industry. He has been there. He has done it. He has the many T-shirts. He knew David Bowie a little bit. I do not. Oh, no.
And no, sadly, no will we ever. But it just reinforced what we already knew, that he's the real deal. He's dealt with some of the biggest artists of all time, and there we were interviewing him, which was bizarre in itself.
It definitely was. And there was a lot of stuff that I picked out from that.
And there's some great stuff. When we were in the band and would record our sort of demos and all the rest of it, you'd think, all right, who are we going to send something to? We're going to send something to like Zane Lowe, or whoever the sort of main DJs were. And it's like, I was under the impression that these people must get thousands of things every day.
Mm-hmm.
But then I guess when you think about it, well, how many bands are there? In any country, and then how many have just recorded something? How many are at that point where they're just about to try and release something or plug something or whatever? And what do you say? Receive how many a day was it?
On average, 15 to 20 a day.
Yeah,
around about that.
Which is still
140 a week.
It's still a lot.
Still a lot to go through, and that's probably why he has to be very.
It's still
clinical with a 30 seconds to a minute, but
it's not perhaps like the hundreds that are, and I don't know why I imagined that. I wasn't basing it on anything, but the fact that he's like, obviously when you're saying it, I'll go on holiday for a couple of weeks, and then if you've sent it during that time, well, maybe I won't get to it, but send it again, it'll go back in the queue, sort of thing. I was like, wow, he does get there.
And I think one of the key parts as well is finding a name and finding an address, because if you send stuff to him in London, it might get there, but it might not.
Was it know the person that you're sending it to?
Yeah,
Mark's from an era where he still likes something on a physical disc. He likes
listen in his car.
That's how he does it. Others might like a link, or they might like to be directed to your website, or they might whatever, but then others won't. So knowing the person, finding out how they want to receive the thing in the first place is probably an obvious thing. But, just making sure that that's what you do.
Do the work for them, because they're the one that's got.
That's well put. Yeah,
they've got the key, so to speak. So if Mark comes across a song he likes, he might play it on the radio. I would do the work for him.
Yeah, if you put it on a plate, so to speak, for him, then it's a bit harder to know the personal quirks of not wanting an image of a band like down a rail track or with a guitar over the shoulder. Personal quirks like that. But again, I suppose you say at other times where he is inundated with them, all guys, I guess, who receive music en masse have to draw the line somewhere to just filter out.
Yeah, and I remember when we did. What was it called? It was our Battle of the Bands thing at the Newcastle Town Theatre.
Right.
We were speaking to one of the producers or the runners before we went on, and they said, "What are you playing?" And we said, "We're playing such and such." And I couldn't do a cover at the time, and they said, "Oh, I'm glad I'm not doing Adele, because if you did Adele, that was like the 20th time we heard it that day." And it's the same principle. If you see 20 covers of a man or a woman walking down a rail track with a guitar over the shoulder in a nice meadow, as he said, looking for a horn, he's just going to go, well, the last 5 I listened to like this weren't very good. So it's the same principle. And then again, don't get us wrong, that might be your area of that kind of
that might be your
singer-songwriter.
That might be your look. But like I say, another DJ will have their own sort of quirks of what they don't want to see, and you know what, some might like that image. That so it's harder to sort of factor in that. But doing a bit of research and knowing geographically which studio they operate from, trying to understand what sort of format they want it sending through. And again, it was interesting to hear that if it's just on a normal CDR with like scribbled on with a Sharpie the name of the band, you're not bothered.
Yeah,
and
I get that to a certain extent as well.
Yeah, and gimmicks. I think he said
pizza thing or something.
An ironing board and other things that bands have sent with the thing. He's like, I could do without that, quite frankly. Because the CDs.
You're just getting through tat. Yeah.
And I guess that's the thing.
And you've spent a lot of money on that as well. Like if you're in a band, you're not going to have a lot of disposable.
Depends how good an ironing board you've bought, Ben.
Well, yeah, true. That's very true. But printing, or even coming up with if you haven't got any designer mates, but you've paid someone to design something for you, it might cost you about £3 a CD. If someone's just going to go, what's all this? I can't get to the CD.
Yeah. But then equally, I'm guessing if it looks professional and brilliant, that's not going to be a bad thing, right?
Yeah,
let's not say waste money on it. But it was just an interesting insight that he, in his experience, he's like, if it's got music on it and it'll play in my CD player, I'll play it.
Yeah, and I think with most, if you do a little bit of research, you can go on and find Steve Lamacq or Mark Riley or Radcliffe McConey or whoever, and you'll find email addresses and who the producers are. And some people do go, let's go to the top and work our way down. But you might just think, right, if I speak to this person who maybe is a runner or does some kind of production on it, they might have the answer to get you to the next one. They might not be able to put a CD in someone's hand or a link directly to them.
Totally. And
it's just supposed to do a bit of work.
Yeah, it's an obvious point, but something that, I don't think we certainly didn't do is, right, we'd find out, right, who did the actual radio shows, but we wouldn't have gone down the food chain or hierarchy, so to speak, and just even the concept of, right, who's the producer, how do I get in touch with them?
Because they produce it.
Exactly. When you sort of look back, obviously, but it's not something.
And that sometimes comes down to like experience and age and stuff and ego as well. No, you want to listen to my CD. Well, maybe they do, but
maybe they don't.
Maybe they don't. And if you don't put that little bit of work in, it goes a long way.
And then so moving on, another really obvious point, but put your best song first. You might like to think that the Mark Radcliffes of the world are going to sit down and listen to your beautifully formed 11-song album. And you know what? From having spoken to Mark, maybe he will. But if he doesn't like the first 30 seconds odd
to a minute
of the first track, then he's probably never going to get that far. So
I would totally agree.
Don't put your masterpiece number 6. It needs to be bang number 1 on the disc.
Yeah, if you're trying to recreate, I don't know, the Stone Roses by Stone Roses, don't, because you're not them yet. You might end up like them, but you might have an awesome song that happens to have like a minute and a half intro, and that might be amazing. But I would still put Waterfall first.
But I'd say it's knowing your audience in this sense. If your audience is a radio DJ, then they want a radio song, and so it needs to be more impactful.
And that's what he was saying,
rather than an album opener.
30 seconds or so with maybe a riff, a hook, and then you want the vocals in to lift it up.
Yeah.
So that's when that whole let's think about it. What is our best song? Oh, it's a 9-minute epic. Well, that's great, but what's our best 3.5-minute song?
Yeah.
Because that might get played. And as Mark said, he gets about 30 tracks a day. 24 of them are kind of picked before he even starts. He's got 6 to decide with Stuart on the show. That 6 might equate to 15 minutes, 18 minutes. And by no disrespect, if your best song is 7 minutes and it might be brilliant, he's not going to play a 7-minute song. by a band that no one knows.
Yeah.
When you could be playing, I don't know, Stairway to Heaven, just 7 minutes long.
Yeah.
I think that costs a lot
Or equally,
more.
you could get 3 songs into that
Yeah, you could.
chunk of the show.
And likewise, again, what he said, if you're thinking about sending your stuff to him, don't do a work in progress demo. This is radio ready songs.
The end game. And sort of touching on that as well, which is something that I'd maybe thought about a little bit when we back in the band, but it sort of resonated with me. He said, often I'll pick a few songs and then when I play it on the radio, it doesn't really sound great. Or there'll be one which I thought wasn't going to be up to much. But then when it came on and you heard it on the radio, it's like, wow, that actually... So listening to your stuff through different mediums, like a lot of people today will sit listening, probably playing music out of the speakers on their computer.
Or through a phone.
Or a lot of people obviously listen through headphones or on a big hi-fi system, and it probably will all sound different on different sort of mediums. So I guess there's an element of once you've spent time getting your song recorded and getting it ready, then what does it sound like on those things? Because it's not like we sat there and maybe headphones and then out of a CD player.
I think we listened to a lot in the car. And that, I think we did that from, I don't know whether this was dramatised for the movie 24 Hour Party people, but Joy Division did that. They listened to their demos in the car.
Yeah. It sounds a lot different coming out of car speakers. Cars
today. Well, you're close, aren't you?
Yeah, but it is a different sound, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. And I think you can pick up on the good bits and the bad bits when you do it like that, especially when we were recording demos or work in progress. And I remember one of our first gigs that in the room, it sounded good. It was loud and raucous, but Dave said he was bursting for the loo. He said in the toilet where you got rid of the high end, the treble, and you're hearing it. He said sounded much better, which I don't know whether that was a good thing or a bad thing.
Well,
but But my point is, let's listen to it in different formats of what could it sound like coming out of radio, which could be a CD player, or could be in your headphones on your phone, or in the car itself. I definitely agree with them on that.
So. Another thing that I sort of liked that Mark says, and I guess he's someone who listens to a hell of a lot of music, is that his point that there's no such thing as a guilty pleasure to him. He's like, if I like a particular piece of music, whether it's pop, indie, folk, or any of the million genres out there, it's like if I like it, I like it.
If something's good, it's good.
Irrespective. And I think certainly, and I know I was guilty of this to start when we were starting in the band. I sort of had almost too much of a preconceived, maybe this is the type of music that I like. Mm-hmm. And certainly, at least in the early days, didn't really want to veer too much from that sort of sound that I maybe's had.
A lot of bands, like if you think about Kasabian, for example, they've got a lot of dance elements to it. You wouldn't think they're a dance band, but you listen to the bass hooks and stuff like that. It's very heavy and very like drum and bassy.
Yeah, but there's plenty pop songs, right? Who've got great guitar riffs in them and stuff.
Oh yeah, listen to any Bee Gees song.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, Jive Talking, something like that. The riff at the start of Jive Talking, or even Upside Down by Diana Ross. Well, Supremes. It's like, why not?
Yeah, get your influences from anywhere.
Take that sort of bass line or that guitar hook and put it with your drummer, it suddenly becomes a different song, and all of a sudden you think, actually, you know what? That's got a bit more warmth to it, and it's a great thing.
So something else that you touched on, which we sort of started to touch on a little bit in the first episode. Mark really likes, or something that really draws him in, and this was when we were getting onto the sort of folk music. He really liked the inter-song banter by the singer, the frontman, or anyone in the band that sort of described what the song was about, how they came to write it, or given a little story in between, and that really worked for him. That really endeared him to that sort of music scene, like the whole folk bit. And again, I suppose it goes to show that a lot of people do like that sort of stuff, and if it's done well, then it can create a connection.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that definitely resonates with folk music as well. Because
again, it's knowing your audience, I suppose.
Yeah, it is.
Some people might be waiting there, saying, "Right, I've come to see you. I want you to play as many songs as possible in the time frame that you've got.
Mm-hmm.
And if you waste 3 minutes of it telling me about something, like, no, I'm here to see music," as opposed to other audiences will be like, well, you know what, part of why I'm here is to hear you talk about
and that's what he does in his own shows. He likes to talk a lot before actually getting on there. And I think one of the good examples of people talking in between, if you are that type of front man who wants to, or front person who wants to talk to their audience, Wayne Coyne from Flaming Lips is magnificent at that. But if you don't want to talk in between, he's definitely not the person to go and see live, because he likes to interact with the crowd. And likewise, if you don't want to talk and discuss between songs, one of the best bands alive are the Kings of Leon for that. They like to get on and give you
rattle through and
25 hits in 2.5 hours or whatever it might end up being, which again, there is no right or wrong answer. It's just finding that connection to the audience. And I think if you are in a folk band or a folk artist, the same address applies. Just put a note on the front that this is for your folk show rather than the afternoon show.
Again, make it easy.
Make it easy.
Yeah, so I suppose finally, on the charity side of things, again, where Mark obviously got a lot of great people to donate a lot of stuff and made, he gave an example of a one-off on how he raised a lot of money, but the Joshua Tree, sounds like a great cause, something that Mark personally has been involved in it seemed like for quite a while.
Yeah, again, local to the northwest.
Absolutely.
You can see the effect, see the benefit it's having.
Yeah, and again, a smaller charity as well. Just a couple of people, I think he said, who'd sort of set this up. And so, in the show notes, we'll put a link. Anyone who wants to make donations, another great cause, and something that I know Mark and obviously anyone else associated with the charity would be more than appreciative of anything that any listeners can send their way. Which
we'll be doing ourselves.
Yeah.
And one last thing from me, James. I knew Bowie a little.
Still haven't got over that. Hey, I've met someone who was, sort of knew Bowie. I feel like I'm sort of a bit closer.
Yeah, actually, this is completely aside now, but when Bowie passed away, Gaz Coombs from Supergrass tweeted, "Out of the 500 million years that the world's been here, I lived at the same time as David Bowie."
Very true. It's a nice thing to think about.
It is. Yeah.
So we'll just quickly signpost next week's episode with Ross Millard from the Futureheads for part 1 of a 2-part episode that we'll have with Ross, where we'll be discussing forming a band, practice, being honest, and band manifestos.
We've reached the end of this week's episode of Anyone Can Play Guitar podcast.
Big thank you for tuning in, and remember to stop by iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts from and subscribe so that you never miss an episode.
While you're there, it would be amazing if you could leave a rating and a review.
All the show notes can be found at www.acpgmusic.com, and if you want to get in touch,
email us your questions, any feedback and any suggestions to info@acpgmusic.com.
That's it for now. Keep supporting upcoming artists,
and we'll catch you next time.